Today let's check out Arturia's latest flagship audio interface called AudioFuse 16 Rig.
Accurate beats.
Now, the audio interface is maybe one of the most essential pieces of gear for anyone that makes music inside of any type of home studio or professional studio setup. And this one is a really powerful USB-C audio interface with 16 inputs and 12 outputs. It's in 19-inch rack format, but also comes with a couple of feet and the possibility to use the rack ears as the front feet, making it work for a desktop setup too. Now, the price of the AudioFuse 16 Rig is about 1,300 euros or US dollars, which is a lot of money, for sure. But looking at the competition here and considering what we're actually getting for the money with this one, it's definitely not a bad deal. Not by a long shot. It's actually quite the opposite of that. You know, just the audio quality that you're gonna get with an audio interface like this one is gonna be top-notch and always rock solid. It's not really fair to compare an audio interface like this one to one of the really entry-level ones out there. Those are, let's be totally honest, good enough for pretty much everyone always. But the comparison isn't fair. Something like the AudioFuse 16 Rig just competes on a different level when it comes to audio quality and noise levels and that sort of stuff. We can't really make a video talking about an audio interface without including some type of audio test from the unit itself. And this is not super useful either because YouTube compresses audio and video in a way that's way beyond my control, but let's try anyways. You're now listening to me over my lav mic, which is probably going to be fixed up in post somehow, but now we're going to use this one, my Rode Procaster mic, which is pretty much on par with something like the SM7B from Rode in terms of gain. So yeah, I've set up my Logic project here to 96 kilohertz right there, and that also goes for the audio interface. We're going to start with the AudioFuse one first, 96 kilohertz. And channel 1 on the audio interface over here, let's crank it to the absolute max. Let's hit record, and we're on that distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, just an audio test with the new AudioFuse 16 Rig audio interface. 1, 2, 1, 2. So let's change the audio settings, plug in the mic on the back of this one, 96 kilohertz. Let's crank the preamp here too, kind of like that. 1, 2, 1, 2, just a quick audio test, in this case with Universal Audio's Apollo X8. 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool, so let's listen back to that without any post-processing at all. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Just an audio test with the new AudioFuse 16 Rig audio interface. Just a quick audio test, in this case with Universal Audio's Apollo X8. Also keep in mind that different audio interface manufacturers counts inputs and output channels in different ways for some reason, at least in their marketing material. So the fact that it says that an audio interface could support up to 24 tracks of incoming audio doesn't necessarily mean that the same audio interface has 24 actual inputs. It just supports it. But this one has 16 actual audio input jacks and 12 outputs, counting the headphones and all that. And that's more than even much more expensive audio interfaces normally has. So that's something. In the front, we're getting access to inputs 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first 2 of them are on these combined XLR 1/4-inch jacks for hooking up a microphone, a guitar, or a synth. And input channels 3 and 4 are on this single mini jack for whatever that outputs a normal stereo output over a mini jack cable like this. And since output 1 and 2 are used for our studio monitors left and right in the back of the unit, we're getting quick access to output 3 and 4 from the front. These could be set up to work as extra headphone outputs, or maybe hooked up to an extra pair of studio monitors, or routed out to some kind of effect pedal or whatever. It's just nice to have a couple of outputs on the front of the unit like this. We also have this dedicated headphone section over here, but also 2 USB-A ports. One for hooking up whatever you want to connect to your computer, and the other one is made to send and receive MIDI data. That's a nice touch. In the back, we're getting a bunch of 1/4-inch jacks, 16 inputs and 8 outputs, plus 2 dedicated ones for the master output for your studio monitors. Simple as that. We also have the world clock in and out, ADAT in and out, and 2 full-size 5-pin MIDI out jacks and a single MIDI in. Another USB-A connection over here, and the USB-C connection for your computer. I can't really think of much more I would want from an audio interface in terms of connectivity. Sure, it doesn't have a lot of mic pre's for like miking up an entire drum kit or something like that, but for instruments like guitars, synthesizers, drum machines, turntables, whatever, You know, this pretty much covers it, right? And so far, I've mainly used this one as my main audio interface for my computer setup, running both Ableton Live and Logic Pro X in really high bitrate mode with low latency without having any issues at all. But what's cool about the AudioFuse 16 rig is that it also works as a total standalone audio and MIDI interface without being connected to a computer whatsoever. The mixer section can be controlled over MIDI, and most of the more commonly used things can actually be tweaked and changed from the control panel itself. We can see all the incoming and outgoing audio on the color display over here. We can jump through different channels and adjust settings for different physical connections, maybe the main mixer or even the Q mixer. That plus the MIDI functionality means that you could run this one as a live mixer too. Now, I'm not really the guy for that, but it's cool to get that type of functionality too, just because. Used with a computer though, this is where the Arturia AudioFuse Control Center comes into play, which is a software that handles all these things for you. On this page, we're able to configure our hardware inputs and outputs, both for the analog ins and outs, as well as for the ADAT in my case. And over here is the main mixer, the Q mixer, and this is the routing matrix. And the routing matrix here looks scary and intimidating at first, if you don't understand it. But as soon as you start thinking about what it actually is, it just makes perfect sense. Let's say that I want to route my analog in 4 to analog out 7. It's just a matter of going there, and it's all done. Over here, we could also set up different aux tracks and save different presets for this entire system for different use cases, which is really, really handy. And since I do a little bit of live streaming on YouTube every now and then, I wanted to make sure that my entire main output also goes to my USB 1 and 2 for my OBS, my streaming setup, to pick it up. And for something like that, it's just a matter of going to USB, finding our main left and right, and go over here to USB 1 and 2. Boom, boom. And just like that, I'm sure that my viewers on YouTube can hear the exact same audio mix as I'm getting in my headphones, all the 16 tracks of audio plus the USB audio. And this could also be changed and tweaked around in all sorts of crazy ways. Maybe I want a metronome to play back to me, but not necessarily go into my sampler or my stream. You know, this routing matrix is not as scary as I thought, and it's really, really flexible. Of course, everyone has different needs depending on your studio setup, but at least for me in here with my somewhat complicated audio routing stuff going on, this works really, really well. And I'm using a lot of samplers in here that needs to be able to sample pretty much anything at any time, and also guitar pedals that needs to be included and be given inputs and outputs. And I've got this audio patch bay installed in my studio rack since a while back, and I think I'm gonna keep it around just because I like having these things around and routing things back and forth, even though I really don't need it with an audio interface like this. And this is me just checking out what Arturia is able to do at less than half the price of my old Apollo X8. Honestly, not really, because I expected this one to beat my Apollo X8, and I'm not sure that it does. I think it's kind of on par with it. Another quick audio test here, running Roland's Jupiter XM with one of the preset patches into my two audio interfaces here. This time with the preamps set to pretty much the middle value, still 96 kHz. But you know, you're not getting any DSP power here or any like emulations of audio preamps or anything like that going. But depending on what you're looking for, this is definitely a lot of audio interface for the money, for sure. But again, in terms of audio quality, the noise floor and the preamps and the connectivity here, I'm actually not sure how much of a difference I'm noticing between this one and my old one, which says a lot because this one is again less than half the price. So that means something. So Arturia's new AudioFuse 16 rig is a high-quality professional audio interface with a bunch of connectivity. Again, mainly for studio use and perhaps not an impulse buy for anyone who just makes music on the computer at home. But if you're getting into gear, getting samplers and synthesizers, drum machines with multiple separate outputs, this could definitely make a lot of sense. Or maybe you're in a band, or you want to record a band and you need an audio interface for that to make sure that everything just works in terms of inputs and outputs, and you also want to future-proof your setup a little bit. This is definitely an option for someone like that too. for sure. I will keep using this one in here, so if you have any questions or anything that you want to know about it, feel free to ask it down below and I'll do my absolute best to try to reply. And that's it. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one too. Until then, ha det gott!
Accurate beats.